The breath is the doorway to our true nature, which is not the body. It's not the basic mind. It's the what you can call pure mind, or the one who knows, or in Advaita Vedanta they call it the Atman, or true self. So the false self is kind of the base, shallow mind, the ego mind, and the real self is dwelling within this voidness, this emptiness, this non-grasping, eternal, outside of birth and death, immortal, yet not, outside conception itself. But it's not important to get too fancy with the language, because there's no need for description when you're in this place. There's no need for anything really. Hence the appeal to it. For once we can breathe and get out of our head. And I like to simplify things. And yes, spirituality is beautiful. Miracles are beautiful. All these things that are unknown are beautiful. But it's all, at the end of the day, metaphysics, and I'm not entirely sure about any of it. But to keep things simple, to keep things extremely basic, 1 + 1 = 2. All thoughts, aside from basic morality, compassion, logic, and reasonable thoughts, these thoughts that get us to work on time, these thoughts that let us have pleasant conversations or do wholesome things, wholesome activities, help us in this way. These thoughts are no problem. I almost struggle to call them thoughts. It's more just like an automatic function of this biological form, or an automatic function of God, or the true self, or whatever you want to call it, or emptiness. But again, to get more simple and away from these metaphysical terminology. Almost all thoughts are toxic, plain and simple. All thoughts are toxic. Aside of the basic ones I described, normal functions, the moral functions, the compassionate functions, the getting to places on time functions, aside from this, all thoughts are toxic. Why? Because we are grasping at these thoughts, and they lure us in to either seek happiness or run away from pleasure, and it all leads to suffering. All leads to discontent, always. We view the mind as this miraculous, dreamlike place where all things are limitless and possible, but it's not. There's 2 places in the mind to end up: chasing pleasure or running away from suffering, and there's no difference between them. And they both do not lead to a content state of mind, or a calm, peaceful mind, which is our goal. But not our goal in the sense that I must have peace, the mind is bothering me. That just becomes more desire, causing negativity, more thoughts. The desire for peace is good, and it's a good goal. The desire for not thinking is good, and it's a good goal. But even that, if it causes you suffering, you must drop it and get rid of it. Do you know what I mean? We're striving for perfection, but to reach that perfection, we have to be okay without being perfect, with being flawed. And therein lies the beauty. You can just drop everything, drop it all. Drop the search for enlightenment, drop chasing your thoughts, because like Ajahn Chah described, the mind is like a big iron ball that's red hot. It's been sitting in fire. It's glowing red. And we try to manipulate it. We think, maybe if I put on these gloves and touch it here, maybe if I touch it here, but nothing works. It's hot around all sides. There's no way of grasping it. Better to just drop it and stay away from it. But the mind is tricky. It lures us in, kind of like if you put red wine in a bathtub and then you pulled the drain. you would see that the drain is subtly pulling that red wine. That's how the mind is. It's like a red dye or a wine in a bathtub, and it's getting pulled, little at first, insidiously at first. And then, like a tornado, before you blink, it's gone. You're sucked in. That's how the mind works. You know, it lures you in like a trap, and then once you're in, it's almost impossible to get out of, like a black hole. A black hole of which we are the creators of. We are the innovators of, the founders of. But the good news is, like the Buddha said, dukkha dukkha nirodha. There's suffering, and there is a way out of suffering, cessation of suffering. And how do we do that? We focus on the breath. The breath leads us to a calm mind. We don't force the breath, we just breathe naturally, gently, however the body is breathing, we breathe. Don't think about it too much, just let the body be. As we do that, we develop a calm mind over time in practice. Then over time of practice, that calm mind, we are starting to reflect on, after we obtain a calm mind, we're starting to reflect on self-investigation. We're just observing the mind, impartially observing, like a spectator, but also analyzing it slightly. And then in this analyzation comes wisdom. Hey, when I'm focusing on my breath, I notice those fears that have been plaguing me my whole life, for only, maybe just for a moment, they disappear. Hey, I notice when I'm not striving too hard for peace or striving too hard to attain enlightenment, not really caring about the results, I have a calm mind. I notice when I'm laughing and letting go that's the most calm I can ever feel. And where do all these thoughts and problems and worries go? The same place they go when the body dies. Nowhere, because they never existed. So simple in its explanation, so simple that it hurts. It hurts the mind. Because we don't like simple things. We've been taught since birth that we need to be doing something in order to attain the nurturing from our parents, like one of my old teachers, Dhamma Dasa, used to say. When we're born, we're given all this nurturing from our parents, if we're lucky enough or blessed enough to had been afforded that gift. And then after a while, around the age of 7, all of a sudden things change and there's conditions put on that unconditional love. There is conditional love, a metamorphosis, and not in a good way. Now there's expectations of us. What do you want to be when you grow up? Is the question most popularly asked around this age. One of the questions. You're not good enough now is the implication. What do you want to be in the future? The future. Work for your love. Take out the trash for my love and nurturing. Get good grades for my love and nurturing. Do as I say for my love and nurturing. Become who I want you to be for my love and nurturing. Become a society who wants you to be. The government wants you to be for my nurturing. Get good grades so your teacher can nurture you. Get good grades for this. Obey, obey, obey. And these people, it's the blind leading the blind. You know? You are perfect just the way you are. As the beautiful, wonderful saint, Mr. Rogers, American saint, used to say. You're perfect just the way you are. And he was very good at being present in the moment with whoever he was speaking with. If you're an American and you're not into all this philosophical, religious, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, mumbo jumbo, check out Mr. Rogers, because he really was a great example of how the Buddha would be if he was alive, or how Jesus would be. He was a very pure, good example of that. And perhaps more easy for Americans, particularly young Americans, to grasp. When we're playing with the mind, we're always playing with fire. And it's always a coin toss. There's a 50-50 chance. Actually, there's a 100% chance you'll get burned. But there's a 50-50 chance in what way you'll get burned. Either from the coals or the flame. And the flame is running away from suffering or suffering itself. And then the coals are chasing pleasure. But both 100% will burn you when you're grasping at this thing with your hand. When you're grasping at this thing with your heart. So stay away from it. Drop it altogether. Appreciate it. Observe it in safety. Get away from it. You neither have to like it or dislike it. But it's like, a wild animal that may harm you in the wild. Just look at it. Observe it. Sometimes it's even beautiful. And let it go. And that's how we stay safe. But if you go messing around with the tiger in the cage, teasing it and whatnot, or trying to tame it, good luck. Good luck. Like Buddha Dasa Bhikkhu used to say in Ajahn Chah, they said, the ego is like a wild tiger, and people try to kill it by running after it, spearing it, causing all kinds of trouble and all kinds of actions and violence toward it. But just keep it in this cage and starve it. Starve it with mindfulness. Hey, you got to do this. Hey, you got to do that. Ignore it. Hey, this person is jealous of you and you're jealous of this person and you're angry at this and you love this person, you like this person, dislike this one, like, dislike. Just ignore it. Like Ajahn Chah used to say, the mind's like a small child. Daddy, I want this. Daddy, I want that. Yeah. You have the wisdom to know more than the child. So that's why every word they said, you don't hang on it. You don't adhere to it. You don't get attached to the child's words. Because, they're just a little child. Yeah, they can be annoying and they mean no harm. It's not real. That's just like how our minds are. I want this. I want that. Just starve the tiger. Peaceful way. Starve the tiger with what? With mindfulness. With sati, remembering to go back to the body, anapanasati, remembering to go back to the breath, and ultimately remembering our true nature outside of the mind. And I love how the Buddha's description of gently breathing in without force at the tip of the nose. One, because he was so smart and wise. When we're thinking what happens, especially when we're thinking hard, our eyes get shifty and they move from one side to the other. Much easier to focus when our eyes are still. So that's one amazing thing. That's good for meditating at the tip of the nose. The other is it brings you outside of the mind, in my opinion, kind of literally. When you're focusing at the tip of the nose, if you could imagine almost like if you had a spirit, it goes outside of your body and is existing at the tip of your nose as opposed to inside the storm and chaos of the mind, which I always think is a nice visual to help people understand what we're talking about with these subtle aspects of practice that sometimes can be hard to grasp with their simplicity. It's like love. We all know what love is, but how chaotic is its descriptions? I mean, walls and books have been written about it, Shakespeare, but this simple thing that is so simple. Selflessness. But we complicate it, so it starts wars, literally, in society. It starts all kinds of things. Makes all kinds of trouble for everyone. So just let it be. It's simple. Also, often we think running away to a different environment, a different location will help bring us peace, and it doesn't. And we find that out the hard way. We think if we're around the right people with the different relationships, that will end our suffering, seeking these pleasures, and we find out in cases that it just doesn't do it. And it's not because when I see people running after different locations or different people, it's not because I'm psychic that I know it won't work out. It's because I know humanity and I know people. I know the problem of man. My problem is their problem. And when they're seeking, when they're running away from suffering, I know what that's like because in a way we all have the same mind. It's all one mind. You know yourself, you know the world, as Eric Hoffer used to say. You know? Yes, you'll be momentarily happy, but it's the shallow happiness that is the same as suffering, because if it remained, I wouldn't call it shallow. If it sustained itself, then we would all strive to be rock stars and movie stars and presidents and rich, because we would see this really works. But we see time and time again it doesn't. Actors who are married to literal supermodels are found in alleyways with pregnant prostitutes for a cheap, fun time. I mean, if being a famous actor satisfied, if being rich satisfied, if being with the most beautiful people in the world satisfied, then we would not hear these stories. But we hear about them all the time. All the rock stars that abuse drugs, running away from whatever demons they're running away from. All the rich people. And it's not that rich people can't be moderately happy, or rock stars or actors can't be live moderately normal lives. They can. But that suffering, rest assured that suffering will always be there. And if that people can do whatever they want, if they want to do that, more power to you. Have fun. But not me. I'll stay out of that. Because it's all the mind. It's all the shallow mind. It's all the ego mind. We want to get to the one who knows. The voidness, silence of the heart, that eternal emptiness, being outside of birth and death. And what is birth and death? Birth and death is running after pleasure and running away from suffering. Happiness because you got a new car, devastation because you ended a relationship. Both are the same. Being born into what you call heaven or being born into hell is all the same thing. You have to be outside the circle of samsara, outside of birth and death. Get away from rebirth. If my body is sick, oh no, I'm suffering. The body will get sick. The body will die. These things are natural. It is not you. We cannot control these things, so why worry about it? I used to have this theory. I thought enlightenment is so easy and so wonderful. I almost think it's a weird psychological denial or something that we just don't realize it, because it's almost like we're toying with ourselves, like we're about to eat a yummy birthday cake or something, and we're just taking one little bite at a time, and then we're setting it down and just admiring the cake because we don't want to ruin it. I really think that sometimes with people. It's like they know what to do. They know what is the right answers, but they don't do it. And it's funny, you know? It's almost like Hanuman not merging with Ram, you know, because he's like, I'm happy, I'm content observing you from here. And that's fine, but just don't go around causing trouble for yourself or other people. Ironically, there's no difference between you and God. When you were just admiring God in your mind, thinking from outside and causing no harm, you become the Lord yourself. Such wonderful things. It's so wonderful how everything works so fluid. And if any of this is seeming complicated to you, like Munindra used to say, a great Buddhist master, if any of this is seeming complicated to you, just go back to mindfulness, that's all. Go back to the breath. The breath is the doorway to peace, our true emptiness, our true peaceful nature, because it is outside of birth and death, outside of thought. Then over time, our breath will dissolve. Even the focus or attention on the breath will dissolve, and we'll be left with the great Buddhist state. And if we have the wisdom to recognize how that happened, what's happening, if we have that wisdom, then we don't realize, oh, I'm in a stranger's house. We realize, oh, I'm in my house. I own this. This is me. But everybody thinks the real good spiritual people who practice really hard, diligently, they'll open the door, but they think it's still somebody else's house. No. It's yours. If people really wanted to be selfish, they would have it for the taking. But they have this baseline shallow selfishness. There is a great selfishness. It's called the selfishness, longing for your true nature. And when you obtain it, oh boy, there's no other treasure worth anything in this world. Because God, as Michael James says, does not need to act. Does not need to act like the Greek gods from ancient myths. Those Greek gods are very human if you look at those stories, causing wars, love affairs, trouble, causing laughter and hatred and all these things. They're very human. A real God does not need to act. Like Michael James said, a real God just needs to be. Just needs to be, because they long for nothing. They want nothing. There's nothing in... They are all things. They don't need anything. But I don't want to get tricky again with this spiritual mumbo-jumbo language. Let's get to the basics. Thoughts are toxic if we give them power. Like heroin, we get addicted to them. But heroin can also be used as a medicine. Heroin can even be used to help you get off of heroin, if you do it in the right way, under supervision, a doctor's supervision, the Buddha, and you get little drips here and there until you're done. Don't just quit cold turkey, although some people have done it. There's all different types of way to get off of addiction. Just like there's all different types of ways to reach nibbana, enlightenment, nibbana, the cooling of the mind, the old Pali word that used to be used, as my teacher Dhamma told me. It was used for food, to cool the food, take it off of the fire and cool the food, cool down, to chill out. This is nibbana. Chill out. Don't go running after these thoughts. Nibbana is nothing very special, although it is. It's nothing very special. It's simple. A cooling of the mind, getting away from grasping. It's non-grasping. Just letting go of liking and disliking, of wanting enlightenment, or thrusting yourself into hell. Letting go of all of that. Oh, it's all nonsense. The brain created a play that the brain created to keep itself entertained. You want to be entertained? Follow the breath. Observe the mind. Non-stop entertainment.